Hi, this is Skip from Skip's Messy Workbench. In this video, I'm going to start the modification of the 1934 Ford pickup radiator. Since my last video, I was very fortunate to find a picture with dimensions of a 1934 Ford pickup radiator reproduction. This reproduction is exactly the way I want mine to look, except mine will be black and copper and will not have the filler tube and cap in the location shown on the reproduction. Using the dimensions on this picture, I was able to calculate that the upper tank should be 3 inches tall and the lower tank should be 2 inches tall. I then scaled these measurements to 1/25th scale, with 3 inches being equal to 0.120 inches and 2 inches being equal to 0.080 inches. I made the tanks using evergreen number 186 0.125 inch square strip for the top tank and evergreen number 175 0.100 inch square strip for the bottom tank. During the building process, the modified radiator was tested for a rough fit into the radiator housing. The final fit will be adjusted when the chassis is assembled. I'm not sure if I'll be making the mounting brackets that are shown on the reproduction. I'll determine that when I do the final fit and mounting. Before we start with this radiator modification, as some of you know, I'm coming back into the hobby after a 50+ year hiatus and still learning a lot of new techniques and methods, including a method I want to use when creating videos. I create videos not just for you folks, but also for me. I get to see what I'm doing, right and wrong, but mostly it keeps me more motivated. Therefore, I want to apologize ahead of time for errors like being off camera sometimes and many others. I'm also experimenting with different camera positions, and in this video I'm experimenting with shooting the video and then doing voiceover afterward. I'd love to hear your opinion. I started this modification by cutting off the original tank. I first used the blade of my X-Acto knife to scribe a line where I wanted the cut to occur. I then will use the back of the blade for cutting off the tank. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be, so I need a lot of light when I'm working on something like this. I tried breaking the tank along the scored line, but didn't want to damage the cooling coils, so I continued cutting. Once the tank is removed, I use the sanding sticks to start cleanup. I use fingernail files. I find that they work really well, and both sides of the fingernail file have grit on it, one coarser than the other. I also then use a knife, and I use some jeweler files. During the cleanup project, I periodically check the dimensions to make sure I didn't remove too much material. Okay, next I want to choose the square stock that I want to make the top radiator out of. I had some square stock laying around on my workbench, so I thought I'd measure it first to make sure it was the right stuff, and found out it wasn't. So I got a bag of evergreen number 186, which is 1/8 inch square or 0.125 inch square polystyrene stick, and that's what I want to make the top tank out of. I checked to make sure that the 1/8 inch square stock is really what I wanted to use, just by making sure how it fits on the top of the radiator, because I do want a little bit of an overlap because there's a bit of an overhang on the tank. The next thing I did was I used the radiator to mark and measure the length that I want the tank. So I marked it off, and I took my knife and I'm going to scribe a mark on it as far as how long that tank should be. I then thought, okay, I'm going to use my knife to cut through this square stock. But that knife has been through quite a bit of, well, it's been through quite a bit. And it just didn't seem to want to cut through. So what I did was I tried it and it didn't work out. So I got my trusty miter box and razor saw, and I'm going to cut a piece the correct size. Now I couldn't find a piece of thin wood to lay in the bottom of my miter box to protect it. But I did have a couple of popsicle sticks sitting on my bench that I decided to put in there to just protect the miter box. As you can see soon, that didn't work out too well, but it did protect my miter box from getting all cut up. Want to make sure I got the right size, so just by comparison. Now before I start putting the curves on the ends of this tank, I'm going to mark the center of the piece so that I try to get the curves symmetrical on either side of center. So I'm going to mark the center. So I'll measure it off with my steel rule and just put a small pencil line at the center. I then marked equal spaces on either side of the center line as to the position where I want the curvature of the tank to stop, because I don't want to take off the entire top, so I just want to curve up to these other marks, just about 2 millimeters I believe I used, to the left and the right of the center. And then I just roughly sketched the curve with my pencil on the piece. I actually made the first curve off camera, and to get the next curve, I'm going to hold this in a small vice grip and use my X-Acto, or not my X-Acto, use my Dremel tool to make the other side of it. I found that this small vice grip holds it very secure, and it doesn't rip it out of the vise from the torque of the Dremel tool. Sometimes the vice grip does put some little marks on the piece, but they're easily sanded off. Now it's time to do some finishing work on it. So I use a jeweler's file and some fingernail files and various other sanding apparatus to balance it off, make the curve nice and straight, nice and flat, and nice and smooth. Again, my eyes aren't very good, so I brought my light down and my magnifier. And oh well, I thought the camera lens was going to be looking through the magnifier. Well, that didn't work very well. So, lesson learned. Don't do that again. Just going to check it again for fit and symmetry. I glued the top tank on again off camera, and now I'm going to rough check the fit in the radiator housing. So I just want to hand hold the motor in place with the radiator housing just in place but not glued, and I want to make sure that I'm going to have enough clearance to put the bottom tank on. So now that I know that I'm going to have enough room and it's going to fit, I'm going to permanently glue the top tank on using some model cement. I always put a pin in the top of my glue container just so it doesn't clog up. I am running this video at 2 times the normal speed, so believe me, I don't work that fast. So now I'm going to do the bottom tank, and I'm going to get some number 176 evergreen, which is 0.100 inch thick. And I'm going to pretty much just repeat the process that I went through for the top tank, only this time I'm going to make the bottom tank. As you see, I always check my measurements. Using the radiator again for the length, putting a scribe mark on it with my knife, and then I'm going to use the miter box to cut the length. Do some cleanup work on the new bottom, and I'm also going to have to take some thickness off of it because it needs to be 0.08 inches, not 0.1. So I'm going to check the fit, then I'm going to hold it in my vice grip, and I'm going to start working on making the width of it 0.08 instead of 0.10. I did use a couple of methods. Use my jeweler file. And I gotta tell you, it's amazing how much 0.02 inches of material really is. And I keep measuring it. I don't want it to be too big. A little too small would be okay for this one, but I definitely don't want it to be too big because then I know it won't fit in the radiator housing. That file was definitely not working out, so I switched over to the Dremel tool. Again, checking the fit. And I'm going to tape the lower tank onto the radiator cooling coils, and again test for the fit inside the radiator housing. At this point, the radiator is a little bit too big, but I know that during the final fitting and the final assembly, that'll be taken care of quite easily. Now the bottom tank is glued on. And we've got almost a finished radiator. The one thing that's left yet, and I'll do that in the next video, is to make the input and output ports for the radiator hoses to be attached. So we'll see you in the next video, folks. Thanks for watching.